the door, please? Hello, everyone. Let me make sure I'm in the camera. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy you are all here. My name is Sharita. Some of y'all know me already. Some know me professionally. Some know me personally. Okay. Well, Sharita, I am mom. I am auntie. I am cousin. Okay. I'm daughter. Hi, mom. Hi, dad. Okay. But professionally, some of you know me as the behavior and literacy strategist. Okay. So we're going to be learning some great things today about teaching Black history our way. Teaching Black history our way. Teaching Black history our way. And what does that mean? Well, I'm going to talk to you about that a bit today. All right. So I just want to welcome. All right. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Black history. Let's talk about our experience with our kids learning Black history in schools. Now, first, I'm going to tell you actually my own personal story, okay? And why I decided to teach my daughter Black history my way, all right? So, before we get into that though, we're coming from the Morgan Unlimited Growth Institute, where you can find solutions for both your child's behavior and literacy challenges, and now math challenges as well. So I teach and coach students online and to improve their behavior and literacy and math at the same time, y'all, okay? So, let me tell you about my story, okay? Why I started teaching Black history to my daughter, my own way. My husband and I have a 14-year-old daughter. She's 14 now. Her name is Jazzy, okay? And now we have another daughter, Maya, who's 4, okay? When Jazzy was younger, she was in school. I would say she was about in the 2nd grade. And she came home one day, and she told me something that made me feel a little upset. She told me that she was sitting on the bleachers with one of her friends, and the friend told her, my dad said I can't play with brown people, okay? So she came home and she felt pretty bad about that, all right? And so did I. But that was one incident that happened, and I talked to her and I said, Jazzy, she doesn't understand what she's saying, honey. Like, why wouldn't somebody want to play with you? And I talked to her, and I just tried to just pour love into her and talk about how beautiful her brown skin was. And then I explained to her, she doesn't know what she's saying. She's just listening to her dad, and that's not how she feels, okay? I tried to talk to her about it, and, you know, I was the first-time mom, so I did the best I could. All right? Now, fast forward a couple years, it got a little more intense because she came home one day and she told me that, you know, in her class, and she was 9 years old, in her class, they were telling her that she has to, actually there was a group of girls. They used to like have groups that they played with at recess. And they told her, you can't come in this group, be a part of this group, unless you had white skin and straight hair. So Jazzy was really upset about this. And you know, Jazzy, she's a little lighter complexion than I am, and she had the little puffs, the 2 Afro puffs I used to do her hair in, right, when she was younger, and she just felt so out of place. She felt bad about it, but this time I was really upset. I was really upset, y'all. I wanted to go down to the school, and I wanted to talk to the principal. I wanted to talk to the teacher. You know how we get. You know how we get, moms. I wanted to handle this, okay? Because what is going on in the school? Y'all need to handle this. Y'all need to deal with this better, right? And I was so upset. But then it dawned on me. And I asked myself a question, a crucial question. history that it would shape how I taught my daughter about herself for years to come. And that question was, I was so upset with the school because of what was happening in the school. My daughter was, a lot of times in the school, she was either the only black kid, or it was her and maybe 2 or 3 other kids, right, who are black in the class. So I was really upset with the school, but then I realized, how can I ask myself this question? How can I expect the schools or anybody to teach me about me? And how can I expect the schools to teach my daughter about who she is? How can I expect them to teach her how to love herself? They don't know. How can I teach how can I expect them to look at me and understand who I am and represent that in school for her? And how can I expect them to understand and anticipate these issues as they come up and deal with them accordingly the way that I would, okay? So I decided to stop waiting on the schools and thinking they had the answer, and I decided that I was going to teach my daughter who she was, okay? Not to mention, I started to ask myself some other questions. You look on this side of the board. Let me see, make sure I'm still in the camera, okay? Let me look on this side of the board. I started thinking about what was Jazzy learning in school when it came to who she was, okay? So black history in the schools from when I was younger and then when she was in school consisted of 3 main areas, all right? Mostly. In some schools it varies, but mostly that's what was going on. They were learning about slavery. I did too. Learning about civil rights and how we had to fight to be equal, right? And then learning about how white people feel about us, okay? Okay, now I know this one right here makes people uncomfortable, but I'm going to be talking about some stuff that's kind of uncomfortable tonight, but it needs to be said. And I'm saying this as well because I was teaching black history in my class, in my tutoring and coaching program, and my students, they were talking about this. Now, when I teach my students anything, whether it's reading, writing, spelling, math, reading comprehension, whatever it is, I don't teach them first and then see what they know. I always have them show me what they know first. So I did the same thing when I was teaching black history. I asked them, and I wanted to know what they knew first before I taught them, okay? And this is what they talked about. Slavery. They talked about civil rights and how we had to sit in the back of the bus. And they talked about how white people felt about us. They kept saying it was real hard for black people because back then, white people didn't like us. They kept saying that over and over and over again. And I was like, man, you know? And it wasn't just them. And this is recently. I'm not talking about back in the day, y'all. I'm talking about welcome if you're just joining. Thank you for joining. I'm not talking about back in the day, y'all. I'm talking about recently, these past couple of weeks. Okay? So I'm like, this is what our kids know about themselves? This is what, and then, you know, I didn't know much more than this. My mother taught me some more when I was younger, but really, years of being in school, this is when Black History Month came around, this is what we learned. Okay? So I had to ask myself a couple of questions before we get there. Who do they remember? It's a question I had to ask. I asked now, and I was asking about Jazzy back in the day. Who does she remember? We think about black people, famous African American people, our people. Who does she remember in history? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman. Most of the time, that's what it is. Hello, Michael. Welcome. Nice to see you. Right? That's what it was. And when I thought about that, I was like, oh, no, that's not okay. So I asked myself a couple of questions, and I want to encourage y'all to do the same. Okay? We're going to talk about some things tonight. Number one, I asked myself all those years ago, what does my child know right now about herself? Okay? And about her history. What did she know? This. This is what she knew. Number two, how do I feel about it? Ask yourself, what does my child know right now and how do I feel about it? I felt sick. I felt sick. This is all she knew? So when she went to school and she was the only black kid in the class, this is what she had to relate to. Slavery, civil rights, and how white people felt about us. Hello, what's up, Toy? Thank you for coming. What's up, Toy? Welcome, welcome. Talking about my baby now. I'm talking about my baby. This is what, and she started coming home from school and she started telling me about what she was learning in school. She was learning, she said, we were slaves. We were slaves. Y'all, think about that. If this is what they're being taught before they're taught their real history, which we're going to get into tonight and how to do that, okay? Who they really are, they're going to identify with what they see, what they hear, what they're being taught, which was slavery, civil rights, how white people feel about us. Slavery, we were slaves. Civil rights, we wanted to be equal to somebody else. We weren't enough. We wanted to be equal to somebody else. And we had to fight. We had to sit in the back of the bus. Okay? This is what they were learning. Okay? So I was sick with this. I said, Next, number three, how do I want my child to feel about him or herself? How do you want your child to feel about him or about themselves? How do you want them to feel? Do you want them to walk around and think of themselves according to this history? Or do you want them to know who they really are, where they really came from? I tell you, I was in my beginners middle school group, and one of my students asked me, he's like, Miss Sharita, because sometimes I wear a scarf on my head. Miss Sharita, why you wear scarves on your head? I be thinking you be African. You African? I said, I am African. He said, no, I be thinking like you African from Africa. I said, I am. I am. Okay? I said, where do you think I got this brown skin, honey? Where did I get this curly hair? Okay? So I had to let them, and then they kind of stopped and was thinking about it. Okay? So why is it that this is where we come from? A lot of us, this is where we come from. Okay? But there's no connection when kids see it. They see someone who's from Africa and they're here in this country, and they don't see a connection between that person and themselves. How is that? Because we haven't taught them that. Now y'all know I don't do the blame game. I don't blame the schools, okay? Because I focus primarily on improving our children's behavioral literacy and math from home, okay? So that they can go to school equipped for success. But I don't blame the schools. I don't even blame moms. All I'm saying is there is a need here. There is a space that needs to be filled. And you know what? We're going to fill it. If there's anything that needs to be done for our kids, we're going to make it happen. We're not going to wait for the schools. They're not equipped to teach us about us. I had to learn that. I had to give myself a kick in the butt. Sharita, how can that? Okay? So how do I want my child to feel about him or herself? What do I want my child to know? What do I want my child to know? Now we're talking, this is assessment right here. Now we're talking action plan. Those of you who are in your kids are in my unlimited growth tutoring and coaching program, you know we do that. We do the assessment, we assess everything, we do an action plan, then we get with it. Okay? What do I want my child to know? And then number 5, customize it. It's not one size fits all. Every child is different. Every family is different. And every parent has the right to say what they want their child to know about themselves. Okay? So for my daughter, there are 2 things I did. One, she loved building things when she was younger. She loved doing things with her hands, right? So what I did did was I looked up on the internet a whole bunch of famous African American inventors. And we studied them. I made a collage on her wall. Okay? And we studied them and studied their achievements and their accomplishments. So she's like, oh, I like science. Okay? Because she likes science. She likes to build stuff. She likes science as well. I like science. I like to build stuff. Just like Mr. Garrett Morgan. Okay? Just like Mr. George Washington Carver. Okay? That's what, but just like Miss Marie Van Brittan Brown. I got to slow down when I say her name. Who invented the home security system, which my students just learned about. Okay? So they make the connection. She was making a connection. I saw my baby swelling up. I saw her swelling up, let me tell you, okay? And then the other thing that I did was, since she was in a school where she didn't see a lot of girls who looked like her, and she was already told that her hair had to be different. And let me tell y'all, for a while, Jassy was coming home and she was begging me to straighten her hair. She would come home every day and she was begging me, like, Mom, please, can you straighten my hair? Can you make my hair look like that? Can you make my hair look like this? People don't understand the impact when you go to school every day and you're perfectly fine with the way you look, but you're learning about yourself, you're growing, you're developing, and then you're being told something like that. To play in this group with us, you need to have white skin and straight hair. So she came home, and every day she was asking me. And like once or twice I did it for her, but then I just like, no, I had to stop. She was upset about it, but I had to stop because, honey, that's not the answer. You're not going to change yourself. You're going to love yourself. You're going to know who you are, right? So what I did instead, and let me tell you, this worked like a charm. I went to the internet again. I told her about and showed her pictures of the women in her family and how we all look, right? We all connected with the women in our family, right? But also, I went to the internet again. I printed out pictures of little black girls who looked like her, who had hair like her. Some were celebrities that she knew. Some were just pictures of beautiful black girls. And we made a collage in her room on the side. Her bed was like this, and the wall, it was next to the wall. The wall was covered with these pictures. So when my baby woke up in the morning, she opened her eyes and looked to the right, she would see those girls looking back at her. First thing. And when she came home from school, when she walked in there, that's what she would see. Okay? So I had to cancel out that experience in school. But it wasn't enough just to do that. I had to educate her. So we learned about Africa. We learned a couple of things. We'll talk more about that in a second. We learned a couple of things about Africa. We learned about famous figures from the past, and we just kept doing it. Also, I found a Nigerian kid group. They're older now, okay? On YouTube called the Super Kids, and we would watch them singing and stuff. It was a song and dance school. They were singing and everything. Some of y'all might know them. And they were a favorite in our house. We watched them all the time. Man, it was just, when you go to their school, nobody might not look like you in the classroom, but when you come home, we're going to represent. Okay? So those are the things you want to ask yourself. Now, who do you want them to remember? Who do you want them to remember? Okay? So now during this phase, I actually learned a lot myself. Okay? Because like I said, I had the same education. Right? So I learned a lot myself, and it was magnificent. And what I'm teaching it now in school is in my program, right? I'm learning how my kids view Black history. And when we learn about the different figures from the past and famous Black people that invented everyday things, right? Like the iron board, right? Never thought about that. Refrigerating system. All the things that we're learning about, they are amazed. They are thirsty. They are hungry. They want more. life, you start saying they, I want you to replace the they with an I. So we're not going to depend on anybody else to do it. Now you learned about who you want to teach. Teach your sister, teach your brother. Okay? But they were hungry and they were thirsty for it. They wanted it. Hello, lovely Lila J. Hello, thank you for joining. What's up, sister? We talking about teaching Black history our way. We're customizing it. Okay? And this is what I am when I'm teaching my students now in my program. And actually, Jazzy is in my program too. The oldest program I have. Maya is the youngest program. So Maya is learning it now. Okay, Jazzy knows a lot of this stuff already, but she's learning it as well. Okay, when you are getting ready to teach your child about their history, Black history, we're not going to leave it up to the schools. Before you get started, you want to ask, number one, what does my child know right now about their history and about themselves? And how they feel about themselves? Do they love their skin color? Do they love their hair? You know what I mean? Do they love themselves? Okay? So what does my child know right now? If it's the three things that we remember learning in school, slavery, civil rights, and how white people feel about us, it's time to change the game. Now it's time to change the game. Number two, how do I feel about it? How do you feel with what your child knows right now about themselves? If you feel sick about it like I did, then your feet are going to start moving because you're about to do something about it, okay? Number three, how do I want my child to feel about him or herself? Number four, what do I want my child to know? What do they know and what do I want my child to know? Me, everything. Everything, okay? Number five, customize it for your child, okay? So, that's the assessment, and now it's time to do the action plan. Now, I think the way that we learn about history, Black history, it's not thorough at all. First of all, y'all like my board? I love boards. I have six boards in my house. I have 6 boards in my house, okay? This is good for creating a learning environment in your home. You have boards in your house. Kids love to write a board. They can study on it. They absolutely love it. Learning is always going on in your house, okay? That's a little quick side note. So we learn, when they learn, our history starts somewhere up here, but then they start learning about themselves down here. They learn from an American standpoint. That's where it started. Well, we know that we were in Africa, right? And then we were slaves. We were slaves. And then now we're in America. And we had to fight for our rights. We had to fight for equality. And we were treated badly. Okay? That's over. Think about what that does to a child. Think about what that does to a child. Okay? But what do they know about Africa? What do they know? So what we want to do instead, we want to change this. Okay? We got Africa, we got civil rights. Okay? We have slavery, we said that. And we have civil rights, right? So this right here is 85% of what our kids hear about and learn about themselves. This right here is 15%. You know, it's a little about Africa. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip that. We're going to switch it. And we're going to make the slavery and the civil rights a small part of our journey. Now, this is not discrediting all the suffering, the pain and suffering that our people went through. We're not discrediting that. We're not going to do. It's not about that. It's about we want our children to believe that they can do anything and everything. We want them to feel confident about themselves. We want them to love themselves. We want them to go after it. We don't want them to go through life feeling limited, right? So we don't want this to be a big part of who they think they are when they go into school and learn about themselves. We want Africa, and we want achievements. We want achievements. We want contributions. And we want culture. Our culture. That's what we want. That's what we want our kids to know about themselves. This part right here, they're going to hear about it. They're going to learn about it. We can teach them our way, right? But we don't want this to be most of what they know about us. You know, Black history being taught in 1 month, we're changing that too. Because I just decided last week that I'm still teaching Black history this month of March to my students, okay? Next month after that, we're going to continue to learn about our achievements, our contributions, and our culture, and where we come from, okay? We're going to continue to learn about it because it's so much, and it's not enough time to do it in 1 month. Y'all understand this, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on achievements, contributions, and culture. And then we're going to make this part huge, and we're going to make this part smaller. And also, when we talk about slavery, especially until they get older, okay? Younger babies don't need to be hearing about all the heinous things that were done, okay, to our people as slaves. They can't comprehend it yet. They don't understand. They just come out like white people don't like us. Walking around with that mindset, and I'm talking about young babies, but I have my students that are older saying the same thing. Why is there so much weight on what other people think about you? And I'm not singling out white people. I'm not singling out anybody. I'm talking about for anyone. When you think about yourself and when you love yourself, should you be thinking about what other people feel about you all the time? These are what our babies are saying. This is what they're saying to me in my classes. Okay? So when we do this, when we make this big and we make this part small, what we're going to do is we're just going to make it part of our history. We're going to make it part of the journey because growth is unlimited, as I always say. Okay? So what we're going to do is, we're in Africa, but we're going to spend a lot of time in Africa. We're going to learn about all the countries in Africa. We're going to see pictures of the people in Africa. We're going to learn about the food in Africa. We're going to learn about the culture. We're going to learn about the achievements. We're going to learn about the dance. We're going to learn about the religion and spirituality and everything. We're going to learn everything we need to learn so that we can keep making connections between us here and our family in Africa because we're family, but the kids don't know that. So in order to do that, we have to really spend a lot of time here. And we want our kids to walk away feeling proud and happy and connected to Africa. Now, we do it like that. Yes. Here we go going to America. But this right here was a part of our history. We were here way before. And there were so many amazing things going on for us and with us way before. We achieved so many things way before we came to America. This is a span of 400 plus years. So we cannot make this such a big part of our history. It's part of America's history, but it's not part of it's not who we are. Okay? So once we focus on the journey. How did we get here? We know we got here by, a couple of ways. Not everyone was a slave. I had to tell my students that too. Because they think that any of the black people that we bring up, or we talk about famous black people, famous inventors, because this is what we focused on this past month, they was asking me, was he a slave? Was she a slave? They really thought, and one of my students in third grade said, Miss Sharita, were you ever a slave? I was like, no. people, or older people older than him, associated with slavery. So they had to learn that. We had to specify that. And when we talk about the achievements of our people, we have to make the achievements and the contributions a huge part of the conversation. If they were a slave, or if they had to escape slavery, or if they had to fight for their civil rights, or if they were mistreated by white people, they were trying to go after a goal, and they were mistreated, we can't make that a huge part of the conversation. But you know why it becomes a huge part? It's because people naturally focus on negative. So we hear about that this is horrible, this feels horrible, this sounds horrible, right? Then that's how kids, that's people in general. We focus on that. So we have to really work on our own mindsets, and then we have to guide our children in their thinking so that part, it becomes a so what conversation. We're learning about, this past Thursday and Friday, Dr. Mae Jemison, first African American to fly out of space, right? She was an astronaut, and she went out of space. First African American astronaut, right? And she accomplished other great things too. Okay? But what we want to, I lost it, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. So we want to highlight their achievements. We want to make sure that our kids know, oh yeah, that's so what. So at the end of, we were reading an article on her. At the end of the article, it said that she had many obstacles. Okay? It said that many people thought that she shouldn't study science because she was a woman. Okay? She was African American. So she had to deal with racism. So they were saying that part. So I was telling my students, I said, let's read that again. Every time we read that, I want everybody to say, so what? People thought that she shouldn't be studying science because she was a woman. So what? Do it anyway. She had to deal with racism because she was African American. So what? She did it anyway. Okay? And then at the end, we have that conversation, and the end part of the article said, but she didn't let any of that stand in her way. I said, read that again. Read that again, honey. That's for you. You read that sentence for me. You read that sentence for me. We don't let anything stand in our way. So we become bigger than that part. Okay? So that part is in there, but it's not the huge part. We focus so much on her achievements. You're like, do you think that she was worried about any of that stuff? Students learned about Madam C.J. Walker, and I asked her the same question. And one of my students was saying, yeah, it was hard for her back then because white people didn't like black people and stuff. I said, look at her picture. She was looking strong, honey. She looked like a boss. I said, look at her picture. Do you think she cared about any of that? He was like, no. Do you think she let that stop her? Do you think she was worried about that? That's other people what they think. And that doesn't mean anything. So for them to have that mindset that they're gonna go after it regardless, right? Now I want to tell you a couple of little activities. Now I talked to you about the collage already. The wall, and y'all know if you listened to me before, watched me before in my program, I'm really a big advocate of the wall. That's how I taught Jazzy how to read, write, and do math before she went to preschool. Because in my living room, it's my dining room. I turned my dining room into her little school. And we used the wall. We learned words. We learned alphabet. We learned numbers. We learned counting. We learned shapes. I made sentence strips. Everything. It was up on the wall. So whatever she learned, it went up on the wall. When she came to study with me, she read the wall. Okay? That's very effective. So we don't use the wall for the same purpose. We're going to, when it comes to Black history, learning Black history. When we teach our kids about Black history, we're going to use the wall. We're going to have a collage up of famous Black people we taught them. But now it's their responsibility to know who it is. So you want to ask them, they're going to have to learn a couple of questions. Let me erase on my sloppy handwriting right here. Erase on my sloppy handwriting right here. Okay? So the first question, I asked them, so I flash a picture, and I want to know this person's name. I say, who is this? Who okay? So they're saying their names out, okay? Who's that person? The person's name, okay? And then I want to know, when were they born? When were they born? Like, where did they live? I was just thinking about, we were reading, I like to mix things. So I was in my math word problem class where we were reading about Madam C.J. Walker. And I asked them, and then not just Master C.J. Walker, it was a couple of inventors, and I told them to look up your own. Like, go into your phones. They love them phones. You're going to use them to work today. Go into them phones and find famous black inventor. Raise your hand. Let me know when you're ready. I want you to read the name, and I want to know when they were born. I want to know what their achievement was, what their contribution was, okay? So we were doing that. And then I asked the question, and you can do all kind of things that you want to do, mix it up to make it fun. This was spontaneous on the spot. But I asked them, I said, if that person was alive today, okay, whoever person is we're talking about, how old would they be? Okay? So they had to do math, okay? So they had to of course, get their date of birth and then subtract it from 2022 and then tell me they had to do it real fast, right? But then one of them asked me how old you are, and I'm like, we don't ask that question, honey. I'm old school, okay? But then I told them, I said, if you could guess the year that I was born, and you do the math, then I'll tell you, right? Man, they was in here like 1840. What? No, you didn't. 1943. I'm like, what? Why do kids think we are so old? Why do they think this? Why? Why are kids like this? Okay. I want to know when they were born, and then where. One of my students, she's in preschool, and we were learning about Mrs. Marie Van Britten Brown. That's a mouthful, y'all. Hey, Latanya, welcome. We were learning about her, and she was in Queens. She lived in Queens, and then so was the student. Like, where do you live? She said Queens. I'm like, yes, she lived in Queens just like you live in Queens. She's like, oh, she was so excited, right? So when and where were they born? Where were they born? Okay, and then what was their achievement? What did they do for us? What was their contribution? And then say thank you. Say thank you. Say thank you. Thank you for inventing the first home security system. We have one in our home, and Maya's all excited, like, oh, it's like the TV downstairs, and we can see. She was so excited because she could see that the connection there, and she could see the woman who started it all, right? And I'm showing a picture so they can see, y'all. All right? Let me say thank you. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you, Mr. Garrett Morgan, for inventing the traffic light so we don't crash. You keep us safe, right? This is how we talk with the little kids. But when they get older, too, just saying thank you. Thank you. So to make it fun, I was doing it like this. I would say, this person was born in, and then say the date, and then say, who was it? Was it Madam C.J. Walker? Was it Mr. George Washington Carver? Was it, and I'll say all of them, and then the kids have to say who they think it is, right? And they were getting them. They were really getting them. I was impressed, especially with the younger group. And it's like, when you're teaching kids, there are 3 ways to teach that I like to teach. One is when they are working independently, which is important. They got to sit down and they got to focus and do work themselves. We do a lot of that, okay? The other one is when they are teaching themselves. They are creating. So in my word problem class, we are learning about word problems, but then they have to create their own. Teaching kids how to write sentences who have trouble with that, but then they have to create their own sentence and for us to all write together, and they have to teach, all right? That's higher level teaching. But the other one, man, the money maker, is when I throw a game in there. Okay? When you throw a game in there and it's like you asking them and everybody's throwing out answer stuff and you're like, nope, 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 yes! You got it, yeah! They get so excited. I don't care how old they are. Okay? I don't care what grade they're in. They get so excited, okay? So that's what we're doing. Who is this? Who's this? What's this person's name? Was it? And then go through all four and then have them pick, okay? This person invented the traffic light. Was it? And then say the names of them. Meanwhile, they're seeing their pictures and they're like yelling out the names. So then I'm in the house and I have papers and I have a picture of Madam C.J. Walker on it, and Maya walks up and she's like, I know who this is. This is Madam C.J. Walker. Bam. That's what we want. We want our kids to know of an entrepreneur, a scientist, right? And not only, we just been, like I said, we just been focusing on people who invented great things in our country that's helped us, right? That's what we've been focusing on this month. And like I said, we're going to continue to learn about Black history throughout the school year. We're not stopping now. Because it's not, I just started. I'm only taught 4. There's so many more for them to learn, right? Right? But that's what we want. We want them then to look and see and recognize somebody from our history that we taught them, that in the way that we taught them, this person was strong, this person was so smart, this person achieved great things for us. Look what they did for us. Look what they created. Look what they invented. And for them to see that person and get excited, that's what we want. We're replacing the usual Black history. We're replacing the usual Black history teaching where it is slavery, civil rights, and like I said, people might get upset when I say this, but this is what the kids are saying. White people didn't or don't like us. This is what the kids are saying. This is what the kids are saying. White people don't like us. No. So we're replacing it. And we're replacing it with, we're going to fill our kids up so that they can know who they are and they can make connections. Another connection I made is, some of my students come to me because they are struggling readers. They're reading below grade level, right? Madam C.J. Walker, she didn't have an education, right? Her parents were sharecroppers. Before that, they were slaves. She didn't have an education. Did that let her stop her? Did she let that stop her? No, I'm asking. So what can we learn from her? That's the other question. I almost forgot. That should come before thank you. We're going to put this in the end. I keep asking them, what can we, I got to put your markers down. What can we, oh, that's a new one, learn from whoever the famous person is? What can we learn from them? So what's our excuse? What's your excuse? If you come to my class and you don't feel like working today, but you say you want to read better. You said you want to read on grade level. Okay? So what do you think Madam C.J. Walker did? Okay? We rely on our elders to guide us, but we don't realize we have so many other elders. And that makes me think too about that's us moms who's always trying to do stuff by ourselves. Okay? I was coming out of the dance class with Maya, and she was upset because she didn't get picked for line leader. And she stuck her tongue out at the little girl, was all mad, like, hey. And I was telling her about herself, and she didn't want to hear it until I said, my grandma wouldn't like that. You know what my grandma would say? Man, when I said that, she stopped and she just looked at me. I was like, what? It was so powerful. Like, my grandmother, who passed a long time ago, is helping me in that moment raise my child. That was so powerful. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of role models. We just got to teach it to them. We can't wait for the schools. We can't say what they should put in their curriculum. We can't do none of that. Not if we want our kids to know it now. Not if we want progress now. Then we're going to teach it ourselves. Right, Latanya? right? We're going to teach it ourselves, okay? Okay, so here's another thing. My older students, they had to do a writing a 5-paragraph essay today, and they started working on it. Okay? And one of the questions I asked, first question was, if you could choose to be one of the inventors that we talked about, right? We learned about, who would it be and why? So they had to write these in paragraph, first paragraph. Who would it be? Who would you choose to be and why? If you're that person, what would your next invention be, or what would your next product be that you would make? We have to apply it. Just like I was saying earlier, where when our kids think about Africa, think about that's a distance from, there's no connection. We have to bring that connection together, okay? We have to make our kids be connected to these famous black people, these people our past, our ancestors. We have to have them connect with them, okay? And then, what would you do? Because I like science like she likes science, so I want to invent something like she. Now we are guiding how they're thinking, okay? And then the next question was, if you could speak to whoever you choose, if you could speak to that person today, or you can go back in time and interview that person, what would you ask them and why? What would you ask them and why? Okay? And then another question, I think this was a conclusion question, was, why do you think we should be grateful for this person? Why do you think we should be grateful for them? Okay? So they're writing it. They got through a couple of paragraphs. I gotta wait till the next class to finish. I gotta wait till the next class. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to hear their answers, okay? But yeah, let's get them thinking. Let's get them connected, okay? Let's teach them. We don't like the way history is being taught. We don't feel like we're being represented enough. I say it once and again. I'm not here to criticize the schools. I'm not here to criticize anything. I don't play the blame game, but I'm all about action. So if there's anything that I don't like the way it's going, I do something about it, okay? So we're going to take charge of our children's education when it comes to Black history. We're going to teach them what we want them to know. We're going to guide their thinking. We're going to help them have an achievement mindset, okay? We're going to help them to understand, yes, we had things that happened to us in our history, but we kept going. We didn't stop. We didn't stop. Look what we was able to do despite all that. What else did we do? 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 Right? And the biggest question, like I said, how can we expect the schools to teach us about us? They are not equipped. This is not a criticism. It's just reality. They are not equipped. I wasn't equipped. When Jassy was young and I decided, you know what, I got work to do. I wasn't equipped. I wasn't equipped to teach. I didn't know. I had to learn and I had to grow. Okay? So we talked about the collage, making a collage, customizing whatever you want your child to learn, whatever your child interest-led learning. I love that. Okay? Where your child is interested in building things. Okay? If your child was interested in science, if your child is interested, whatever it is, we can go back and we can find and learn about and remember. They got so excited when I was talking about security system that was made by, here we go again, Mrs. Marie Van Britton Brown. Okay? She was actually a nurse. And she and her husband had different work schedules. So she was home by herself, living in Queens, and in her day, there was a lot of crime in the neighborhood. So she felt very nervous about being home by herself without her husband. So she invented the first home security system, okay? And it had 4 peepholes. They're like really paying attention. It had 4 peepholes. It had a camera that went up and down to look through the peepholes. And she invented a remote control that could unlatch the door. She could press the button and let somebody in. Okay? So they're so excited about that, like, oh, and then learning what can I do? Okay? So we're going to teach them. It's not just about us teaching Black history from our home, but it's about if our children are in school and they're struggling academically, they've fallen behind. You know how many moms, I have phenomenal moms in my program, y'all. Y'all phenomenal, okay? They've been working at home with their kids, okay? Right? We work at home with our kids. We don't just say, okay, they reading below grade level and we like just lead up to the schools to take care of it. We're working from home. We're trying to figure out what else can we do. How can we fix this issue? Okay? So just like we feel like that passionate about that, we have to feel passionate about what our children are learning in school when it comes to their history. Okay? Now, what were the kids saying to me? Of course, I told you they were excited. Everybody's paying attention when I start talking about Black history. But I'm also hearing, man, I didn't learn about none of this in school. Right? And my daughter was like, we didn't learn about Black history at all this whole month in school. They didn't say nothing about Black history. Okay? So this is what they're saying. And they're like, we should know about this. Especially if it's something that we see every day, like the traffic light. I'm surprised. These are my students. I'm surprised that we don't know about this. Well, moms, dads, we're about to change the game. Our kids are thirsty for this. They are hungry for this. So we are going to change it. We're going to make sure they get fed. This is crucial to them. This is crucial to them. This is crucial to their self-esteem. This is crucial to their confidence. Because, baby, when I started working with my daughter, her whole outlook changed. You couldn't tell her nothing. She stopped asking me to straighten her hair every day. She started feeling uncomfortable about being in school around friends and everything, right? And she stopped being uncomfortable about herself. She started to feel good about herself. She was excited, right? We have to build that connection ourselves. So that's what we are doing. We're doing it mom style. We're doing this thing mom style, okay? So make a game about it. You can do anything. You can do flashcards. You know what I'm saying? You can have them have a board like this, or even a wall. You can put pictures of the famous African American inventors. I keep saying inventors. That's what we're studying right now. On the wall, across the wall. Have the kids come back a little bit, and then give a clue. And then tell the kids, all right, go point to the picture. They all running everything. They all like, okay. Now I'm going to choose who is correct. Keep your finger there. That's focus. That's focus. We teach our kids how to focus too. Keep your finger there. Don't move. And freeze. If you move, I'm going to skip you. Okay? That's focus. Okay? You can have them do that. You can have them pretend to be. Like my students that are doing an essay, and like if I was this person, this is what I would invent next, and this is who I want to be and why. You can have them stand up and do a presentation and pretend right in your living room. You don't have to wait for a school to do it. Right in your living room. They all do presentations. They can go up themselves, become the teachers now, and say, I was born in this year. I invented this. Okay? I'm well known for this. I'm known as the plant doctor, right? Mr. George Washington Carver, right? I'm known. Who am I? And then the everybody around they can shout out the answers, or they can write down the name, hold up a card. Okay? There's endless things that you can do. Okay? But at the end, the kids are engaged. They are excited. They feel good about themselves. They're learning things, and they feel connected. And when our kids feel connected, and they know who they are, when they're learning about Black history the way it's currently taught in schools, that's not going to make them feel horrible about themselves. And they're going to understand that that's a part of our history in this country, but that's not who we are. That's not who we are. Why? Because, like I said before, we make that smaller, then we make all of our achievements and contributions, our culture, okay? Who we are, our traditions, our values, this big, because that's way bigger. This is who we are. That's not who we are. That's what some people teach, but that's not who we are. This is who we are, okay? So I urge you, I want to thank everybody for joining tonight, okay? But I urge you to start to think yourself, okay? What does my child know right now when it comes to Black history? How do I feel about it? Okay? How do I want my child to feel about him or herself? Okay? What do I want my child to know? Ask those questions, write them down. Write the answers down. And then, now it's time to customize it. I'm going to teach my child to make sure this is what I want my child to know about themselves, about their culture, about their history. It's how I want them to feel about themselves. You ask your children themselves. You talk to them. You find out what they know first. You talk to them. You find out what they're excited about, what they need to learn more of. They get so hungry and thirsty about it. I'm telling you. All right? So take the time. And of course, we're not going to just celebrate and teach our children about our history 1 month out of the year. We're going to teach it all the time. So that's how we're going to flip it, and that's how we're going to teach it our style. And that's how we're going to have our kids walking around here feeling awesome about themselves. Okay? And knowing who they are. All right? So in my classes, we started with Black inventors, but if I thought about this before we started, I would have started in Africa. Just like I did with Jazzy. We're going to have some maps, and they're going to be learning about the countries on the maps. And then we're going to go on the internet, and we're going to research and learn and discuss about each particular country. We're going to have a ball, okay? So this is what we're going to be doing soon. But this is not the end of learning about famous Black inventors, because we only studied 4 this month. With everything else that we were doing, we're going to continue to study, we're going to continue to learn. But we're about to go into Africa. We're going to learn a lot about ourselves. And then we're going to continue to learn about all of the contributions, all of the culture. We're going to go all over the world, right? Which we can, all right? It's Zoom, it's virtual. No, I'm just kidding. But one of my students that I had recently, he was in Jamaica. So we can be all over the world. We can figure some stuff out here, okay? So I want to thank y'all again for joining, all right? Teach y'all kids the way you want to teach them. Don't wait for the schools to do it. Don't wait for nobody to tell you about your own Black history. Learn as much as you can yourself and decide how you want your child to learn it, okay? And we live in a time today where our kids are exposed to so much. We feel like we don't have a say. Yes, you do. You do have a say, okay? Because it's your job to raise your child, and that's also to raise them and grow their thinking. So while you're growing your child's thinking, you can decide how you want them to learn about their history. And you just keep feeding them, making sure they feel good, okay? All right? Also, before I check out of here, okay, I want to tell you about my program one more time. It's the Unlimited Growth Tutoring Coaching Program. Some moms come to me because their children are reading below grade level, struggling with literacy overall, right? And they have focus issues and challenges, behavior challenges, right? And you want to improve behavior, focus, and literacy at the same time. And then some moms end up in my math class. Their kids end up in my math class too, which is very challenging. I challenge all my students. It's tough. They will tell you. Ms. Rita has high expectations. I don't help them with anything. And some moms come because their kids are having these issues, and we talk and discuss, because my mission is to help all my students function at or above grade level. And if they're in special education, to help them transition out of special education into general education. To no longer need a paraprofessional aid, all right? To no longer need an IEP. I have 2 students currently that I meet with my students' teachers, and we're making a plan for that to happen. They've grown so much that now it's time for them to be focused on this is what they have to do, ... for them to transition out of special education, and we're getting it done. Okay? All right? In the future, I'm going to be talking about special education is temporary. That's a life that's coming up. And we're going to talk about how exactly to help your child, if your child's in special education, transition out of special education into the general education setting. And real quick, you do that by making sure that any reason that they are in special education, we eliminate that. We grow them so much, there's no reason for them to be there anymore. So we'll talk about that, okay, another time. All right? I have a student, his name is Mason Bryant. He is getting ready to graduate, okay? And he was the first student that was inducted into the Morgan Unlimited Growth Institute Hall of Fame. What does that mean? That's for any student who came to me. Everybody have an action plan. They worked hard. They pulled themselves up. They improved their action plan. Like, they hit all the areas of their action plan, okay? They improved, and then they improved in school as well. They improved at home as well. And they got on the honor roll. You do all of that, honey, you are inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he got a t-shirt for being on the honor roll. My honor roll students get a t-shirt. And he got my book, okay? Writing and conflict resolution workbook, where I combine writing and also learn how to solve conflicts, true life conflicts, okay? And he got a plaque, and he got a gift card for $100, okay? So you'll be seeing his picture soon. You probably saw him before, all right? So he is graduating. I told my students I am a serious stalker. I keep in touch with my students' moms, and I'll be checking up on them. Okay? So I'm going to miss him. We currently have 4 students on the honor roll. Okay? And we have other students who are working to get on the honor roll right now. We are a high standard program. Okay? And I love my students. I'm very hard on them, very tough on them. I will hunt them down if they miss my class. They all know this. Okay? So if you are looking for a program, a tutoring program, it's tutoring and coaching. You need your child to improve in their behavior and their focus. You need them to function at or above grade level. You need them to develop a work ethic when it comes to their schoolwork. And you're not afraid of your child being challenged and pushed and in a no excuses environment and high expectations and growth and achievement mindset environment, then go ahead and contact me. You can DM me, or you can visit growthinstitute.mykajabi.com. That's GROWTH Institute.mykajabi.com, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging with me tonight. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Toy, for coming. Lovely Lila J. I'll talk to you soon. Miss Latanya and Toy. Nice to see you again. Oh, yeah, I see you twice. Thank you so much. That's who I can see right now. Thank you so much. I love y'all so much. Thank you for joining. And have a happy weekend. Oh, believe in yourself. Believe in your child, honey. And always remember that growth is